What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today I'll be breaking down this 7-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Thursday night. Kind of doing an early look slate breakdown, throwing people into my early look player pool in this lineup here to the right, as you can see. Kind of talking through each game, all the good stuff in this video. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get right into it. So, still have a few games going on the NBA side of things, but let's get right into the odds here for tomorrow. So Warriors, Pacers, 5.5 point spread, 250.5 game total. Absolutely massive game total right there, which is a little bit surprising because the Warriors have been god awful the last two games. Super low scoring game last night, and then tonight was a very low scoring game with the 76ers. They ended up blowing them out. So yeah, I think they barely got to 100 there before they kind of got pulled for the blowout there. But it was a very low scoring first half. So the Warriors have been struggling offensively there. But Spurs, Magic, 11 point spread, 224 total. Cavs, Nets, 6 point spread, 224. Mavs, Knicks, 2 point spread, 233. Bulls, Grizzlies, 5 point spread, 213. Timberwolves, Bucks, 2 point spread, 229. Pistons, Trailblazers, 5 point spread, 229.5. Jazz, Suns, 7 point spread, 243. And then the Nuggets and Lakers, 3.5 point spread, 229. So hopping into this first game here, Warriors versus Indiana. As I always say, we always want to target Indiana, but it's one of those things. The Warriors have been god awful, and they've pretty much been a two-man team so far here in these games the past week or two, or I'd say even the past 2 weeks. As I said, the Warriors are playing tonight. They played last night, and they're going to have to play this game tomorrow. So they're in 3 games in a row. I know a few of these teams are in back-to-backs or possibly 3 games in a row. So there could be a good chance of some of these teams resting their kind of main guys or stars. Like the Warriors, good chance that they rest, either Steph, Clay, or Draymond, or even multiple of them. So could be one of those things where we stack up and load up on the Warriors and Thunder and Indiana game, and that's really all you need to do. Obviously, you can get different with like 1 or 2 other people, but that could be a good chance for happening tomorrow. But obviously at the top, 9.5K for Steph. Let's just assume for right now that we are good to go. Everyone's going to play, but obviously, as I said, big chance that they end up resting one of these main guys. But yeah, Steph at 9.5 looks great. It's pretty much been a two-man team so far. Steph and Kuminga here at 7.3 leading the offense. In terms of, other plays, Draymond at 6.1, if he does see 30-plus minutes, I think he's a really solid play there at 6.1. And I do like Pods. He came off the bench today, so definitely keep an eye out on that. But if he moves back in the starting lineup, I like him. But if he comes off the bench, there's definitely a little bit of risk that he doesn't see his full allotment of minutes just because they have been working in guys like Quinones, like Moody, like Santos. They also, still have Trace Jackson Davis. They have Looney. They have Saric. So they do have a good amount of people they are going to right now, which definitely could hurt the upside a little bit of Pods. But as I said, there could be a chance that you guys do end up playing. But, Clay at 5.8, I always think he's obviously GPP viable. Same thing with, Andrew Wiggins. He actually, I think, shot the ball better today. So maybe you could, start getting on a little bit of a hot streak here. And then obviously we get these lower guys. Don't think there's a need to get them right now. But as I keep saying, good chance that they do end up resting their starters, in a back-to-back. Halburn here on the Indiana side played 29 minutes. So it looks like we're getting close to that 30-minute mark for Halburn. And at this price tag, I definitely think he's viable. Could be a chance that he plays more than that. What to see, but I do like him there at 8.6. I think Pascal's a fine secondary option. Going to be a 1-2 option there between him and Halburn. So they're fine plays if you land on them. I always think Miles Turner's a very strong GPP option just because of the upside with him. Will be the third option, but we know he can get there with the block. So I think those 3 are your best bets, obviously. But in terms of like secondary options, I think your best bet would be Mathurin. But if he's going to miss, then we can definitely look to a guy like Naismith, who should be playing pretty solid minutes. We've seen him have some pretty solid upside, even though he's going to be like the 4th option offensively. Otherwise, if not looking to Naismith, we could definitely look to a guy like Buddy Hield coming off the bench. Not playing a ton of minutes, but at 4.6K, he gets hot from 3. He could definitely pay off the price tag. But right now, I think the best bet is just to stick with the main 3 guys on Indiana. Moving on to the Spurs side here. Obviously, as I always mentioned, Victor, he's playing tonight. So there's a chance that he doesn't play tomorrow. I think they're slowly easing him into back-to-backs. But obviously, there's always that chance that they do roll him out. And if that happens, there would be a little bit of value. I'd like, obviously, Zach Collins. If that happens, he'd probably start. He'd look really good there. And then we could possibly get to like a Barlow if you're looking for very cheap value there as the secondary center there. But for right now, let's just assume Victor's in. If that's the case, it's kind of the same situation as always with the Spurs. I'd really only get to Victor. I do think Vassal's an interesting contrarian option there in the mid range, just because he's playing good minutes. You know, he's been decently productive, as you can see, 35 or more fantasy points in like 6 straight games. But yeah, I mean, that's about it. You know, he really hasn't flashed too high of a ceiling. He's coming in at pretty much 7K, so it's like more of a shoulder shrug play. Keldon Johnson just completely fallen apart this year in terms of production. If you're feeling risky, sure, you know, he's a guy who can score, can get some rebounds, but I just don't like landing on any of these secondary Spurs pieces. It just, they're all kind of there. I mean, Trey Jones, as you can see, kind of consistently getting 30 fantasy points. Sohan floating in between 15 and like he can go for 40 at times. It's very gross getting to these Spurs, especially with a 11-point blowout. Really hard to like them unless they kind of rule out Victor, and then we could go to a guy like Zach Collins, who should start, should be aggressive. He'd pretty much be a lock there at that price tag. And then, as I mentioned, a guy like Barlow would come off the bench. Maybe they do work in a little bit of Diakite, but I doubt it. They'd probably just, you know, play Barlow. I do think they could go back to Mamu here, who did get some run there a little bit ago when they did have, you know, Victor, you know, ruled out, and they did have a little bit of Zach Collins out as well. But yeah, right now, not a lot to like on the Spurs side. Moving on to Orlando here. Paolo's coming in at a very interesting price tag. Still has a monster ceiling, even though Franz is back. So I do really like him. Franz, more so shoulder shrug play for me, kind of like a Vassal play where it's like you're pretty much going to lock in 35 fantasy points, but it kind of feels like that's it. There's no real ceiling. I think that obviously the best option is going to be with Paolo here. And a great matchup that we do want to target the Spurs in. I like Wendell. Was solid for me last game. Did have a lot of foul trouble, so definitely lost out on some minutes there as well as with the blowout. But still put up 28 fantasy points, 5.3K. We know he can easily go for 30 plus. So I have some interest in him and Paolo right now, and that's really it. Suggs minutes have been mid-20s. Production's dropped with Franz being back. Same thing with Fultz, mid-20s minutes. Everyone's going to be kind of the secondary options. It's going to be Franz ball, Paolo ball, maybe a little bit of Wendell, but that's really it. We don't really have anyone else who's going to be stepping off offensively for the Magic. Everything's going through Paolo. Everything's going through Franz. You really hope these guys, you know, get hot from the three. Otherwise, you know, not much offense is going to be coming from anyone else. As I always mentioned, sure, you could take a shot on Cole Anthony. Maybe he gets hot from the field and they extend him, but his minutes have really, really plummeted. And they're finally fully healthy. Like the running guys like Gary Harris out, you know, Joe Ingles is there running, you know, mid-teens minutes. So it's a pretty gross rotation right now. As I said, you really just want to stick with the main two guys and then maybe take a shot on Wendell. I don't think you want to burn yourself by going to anyone else there on the Magic right now. And there's just not much value to like. Moving on to the Cavs here. Another team that played tonight. I don't think they played yesterday. No, they didn't play yesterday, but they played tonight and they're going to play tomorrow. So back-to-back here. Could get a rest opportunity for a guy like Mobley who's coming off that injury. I don't Allen had like an ankle injury. He was kind of questionable. But yeah, Mitchell, I think he went for 40 tonight. Been on unreal streak. As I always mentioned with the Cavs here, another team don't really like playing full strength just because everyone's priced about right. You're not getting anyone at a discount. So as I always say, if you're going to land on someone, pick Donovan Mitchell. He's the leader. He's been, you know, leading them on this massive streak. Just went for 40 last night. Obviously, it's hard to, you know, follow that up again, but still, if you do want to pick someone, I'd pick him. I do think Allen's just a little bit too pricey for being a fully healthy team. Obviously, he has upside, but it's hard to trust that. I mean, Garland is there. Mobley's there. He's been productive, but I mean, they're all priced about right. As I consistently say, it's hard to really land on these guys and feel great in this spot here, unless it's Donovan Mitchell. In terms of value, I mean, LeVert, come off the bench. He'll see mid-20s minutes. Nothing crazy there. And then Strus at 5.8. His prices come up a little bit after he had a good game there. So, as I say, it's just not much to like there on Cleveland. They're all just secondary options. No one really stands out to me. On the Brooklyn side here, I do think it's, you know, cheap price tags for Bridges, who we've seen can easily go for 40, 50 plus. It just comes down to can he hit his shots. They've kind of getting blown out a few games recently as well. Utah game, Phoenix game, Philly game. I mean, it's been pretty much like 6 straight games they've been getting blown out. They've been playing terrible. So not really sure what's going on with Brooklyn here, but I think it's a fine price tag for Bridges. I still think Cam Thomas is probably the best play just because of the amount of times he will shoot the ball. And he's actually been pretty good at the rebounds and assists past 3 games here. You know, 8 8, and then 16 the past 3 games there. So I really like that, especially with how much he's shooting. So I still think he's a pretty solid play here, even though a decent blowout risk in this game. I like Claxton. He should be in line to see huge minutes, having to guard Mobley, having to guard Allen. So if he can stay out of foul trouble, I do think he's a sneaky GPP play. Ben Simmons came back, played 20 minutes on a minutes limit. It's just hard to trust there, right? Like kind of like the Tyrese Halliburton situation. Even though they can definitely go off in those minutes, it's really hard to trust. You're not getting them at a discount. I don't think you should force it. Cam Johnson still out, DFS still out, Lonnie Walker still out, Sharp still out. So, Dinwiddie should be in line to see big minutes, but he's just been terrible. Has not been good. I still think there's a chance, if you want to get risky, you could definitely, take him. We know if he gets hot, he can go for 30 plus and a 5.2K. It's going to do you really good. But otherwise, he's just been so bad. Royce O'Neal really stepped up that last game. Was really the only one who could really hit a shot for them against Dallas and Golden State there. So I think he's a fine value. Played 4.5. And then we'll see some Dennis Smith Jr., I'd say around 20-ish minutes if you're looking for some cheaper value. Watford really hasn't cracked the rotation recently, so nothing too crazy there. Moving on to Dallas versus the Knicks. On the Dallas side here, questionable for Luka and Kyrie, but it looks like Luka should be good to go, and Kyrie as well. So with both of them healthy, don't really like either one of them. I was super surprised that Luka came in he was, I think, 25% owned going against Brooklyn with Kyrie back at 12K. And there was a little bit of value on the slates, but there wasn't a ton. And so I was very surprised about that ownership. People kind of got bailed out with them both having massive games. But we know the upside is there with both of them. Like, even playing alongside each other, they're both there. I'd still probably land on Kyrie, even though Luka is safer. But with both of them back at their price tags, they're more secondary options for me. Not much interest in the rest of this team here. They're all kind of priced about right. Maybe we land on Derrick Jones Jr. if he gets to start, but they're kind of splitting the minutes around a bunch of these guys. Powell, Williams, Derrick Jones Jr., a little bit of a Hardy as well as Green, Kleber. So not a lot to like here. And Tim Hardaway Jr., kind of that secondary option off the bench. They're all there. Moving on to the Knicks side here. Brunson is questionable, obviously, if he is out, which it looks like there's a good chance he could be out. We could get Miles McBride starting at 4.1K. He'd be an instant lock. He played 31 minutes there once Brunson went out. So a lot of interest in this Knicks team here just because, sure, there could be a lot of blowout risk there if there's no Brunson because he's just been amazing, the main guy for this team. So definitely keep that in mind. But if Brunson's out, we're going to load up on at least, I'd say, 3 of these New York Knicks players. McBride, even though DiVincenzo's 7,900, he's been playing amazing. He should shoot the ball even more, assume more of the guard role. At 7.9, I still think he's a pretty strong play. And another guy who should step up offensively. We could see a guy like Fournier crack the rotation and play a good amount of minutes. I mean, there in 11-17, he played 16, but then back a little bit after Christmas, 17 minutes. And he really hasn't played. I mean, not really sure why. I mean, he's kind of washed, kind of chalked at this point, but still. Could be a decent shooter, a guy we could definitely look to at 3,000 who could crack the rotation here because they will be needing offense and he could be, a spark plug off the bench there. So definitely keep him in mind there. Otherwise, I don't have interest in like Brown or Gibson or Archie Diacono or Flynn there. I'd really just kind of stick with the main guys, McBride, DiVincenzo, maybe Josh Hart. I mean, the minutes are great, so it's hard not to like him there, even though he's not the best offensively. He should be a little bit more aggressive. Same thing with Precious. Same thing with Hartenstein. Like, it's hard not to like these guys just because they're playing massive amounts of minutes. And if Brunson's out, these guys are going to have to pick up the slack offensively. So a lot to like there for the Knicks right now if there's no Brunson. Now, if their Brunson is Brunson, I'd say, Brunson's a great play. DiVincenzo's a great play. And then, sure, we can maybe look to, a guy like Hart as a nice, strong secondary option. Same thing with Precious, same thing with Hartenstein. Moving on to Chicago here. Once again, as I always say, I really like Vooch, really like Kobe at their price tags. The price tags hasn't moved. Good matchup here against Memphis, who have been very depleted. DeRozan, I think, is a strong secondary option. Been good the past 2 games there. They came back from a huge deficit there in the first half in that last game against Memphis. But still, I think your safe options are Vooch and Kobe Wright, which I both do really like. And Kobe was, I think, 2% owned for me last night and went for 53. So that was great to see. But once again, really like both of them here in this matchup. They started Drummond last game, but I think that's more so just because they had a guard in Gobert and Towns. I don't think they do it again. I think they, start Io like they were the past few games. Io still played 29 minutes off the bench, but as you can see, his production really dropped coming off the bench there compared to when he started here, where he saw 10 plus shot attempts and pretty much played the whole game there, like 4 straight games. So if Io starts, really like Io, really like Vooch, really like Kobe. If they somehow for some reason start Drummond again, it's still going to be Kobe and Vooch for me. Drummond would be a strong secondary option alongside DeRozan. And then you could look to Io off the bench at 5.6, but wouldn't level him too much. And then Caruso should be good to go. If you want to get different, you can definitely land on him at 5.3. Another guy who will play a ton. And I'm interested to see how many minutes Torrey Craig played. Questionable. He played 22. So as I said, could be a cheap value there if he does play. Moving on to Memphis here. The big news is Triple J. If he's good to go, I actually do really like him here at 7.9. He should be in line to see huge minutes, shoot a ton. And we know the upside is massive with him. So would be, if I'm going to be playing, 1 or 2 or 3 Bulls, I think I'd run it back with at least Triple J there. And maybe a guy like Vince Williams, who should be in line to play 35 minutes. Excuse me. Should shoot the ball 10 plus times. And we know he's a guy who can stuff the stat sheet. As you can see here, went for 44, 34, 25, 39, 41. You get it. Like, he's going to play a ton, kind of be that secondary scorer behind Triple J. Santi would move more so towards like an okay secondary option. And then the only other guy I'd probably look to would be Luke Kennard, who did come off the bench, played 24 minutes. But he should be in line to play mid-20s minutes, 5.4K. They'll need to shoot him off the bench. But right now, main priorities would be Triple J and Vince there if they give it a go. Moving on to Minnesota here. Very disappointing loss for them. Anthony Edwards was just great for me. Dropped a 70 bomb there as a core play alongside Kobe White. But yeah, it's one of those things. They're up 23 points at halftime. They blew the lead. I do think they're going to be looking to kind of come out and finish this game here. So once again, I do think Edwards and Towns are both very, very cheap here at their price tags. Like them a lot. I think Gobert is an interesting mid-range play who I still haven't played yet this year. Maybe I'll play him tomorrow and he'll probably have his worst game of his career. But it's one of those things. I just stick with those main 3 guys. I don't think there's a need to get to anyone else here. If you're feeling frisky, sure, you can land on Mike Conley. He's kind of been that steady 25-point fantasy point per game range, but that's about it. Jaden McDaniels should play a ton of minutes, but as you can see, the offense of production is all over the place. And then maybe Naz Reid, another one of those guys who can get hot off the bench there, but nothing too crazy. On the Milwaukee side here, obviously the big news is Giannis is questionable, but he should be good to go. Damian Lillard should be good to go here with the ankle, missed that last game, but I'd expect him to be back. Middleton is out, and then Brook Lopez missed that last game for personal reasons. He should be good to go. So it's pretty much going to be a full team here, full healthy team, besides Middleton, who will be out with that ankle injury. So that in mind, really, really like Giannis, really, really, really like Dame there at that price at 8.8. And then I do have interest in, Brook Lopez with, Middleton being out. Brook Lopez will be that third option there in the starting lineup. We know the upside is massive with his blocks. So I really like him and I really like Dame. I do think obviously Giannis is Giannis if you do want to land on him, but I do think I'd rather get to the other 2 right now. And then Beasley, he will shoot the ball. Fine option there at 4.8. Nothing too crazy. Portis off the bench is a little bit too pricey for me. I do expect his minutes to drop down a little bit. And then an interesting thing is that Doc Rivers has mentioned that he does want to get Pat Connaughton more involved. Want to build up his confidence. So Pat Connaughton at 4,000 could be an interesting value who could be in line for mid-20s minutes. Obviously, he's not going to be too heavily involved offensively, but if you're looking for a guy who's going to be playing probably 20-plus minutes, he's your man. And then moving on to the last game here, Utah versus Phoenix. Utah side, as I always say, the offense is going to go through Lowry and Colin Sexton, both coming in at interesting price tags. Don't mind either one of them. Collins has been better recently, as you can see here, pretty much going for 30 or more fantasy points in like 5 straight games. In terms of other guys, we know Clarkson, one of those, scorers off the bench, if he gets hot, could easily go for a 50 bomb. It's just, that's the big question mark. Can he get hot? Can he hit the shot? Not starting, obviously, is a downgrade to him, but he's there. The rest of the team, I don't have much interest in. They're going to split minutes between Kessler, Olynyk, Dunn, George, Abaji. I mean, it's just not much to like here in terms of these other guys. I mean, sure, Keontae George would probably be the best just because he's seen the most minutes. But that's really it. I just don't think there's a need to get to any other value plays on the Utah sides besides Keontae George and those three main guys at the top. On the Phoenix side here, obviously a fantastic matchup. A little bit of blowout risk. Booker and Durant are pretty strong and safe options here at the top. Beal questionable. Obviously, if he's out, it definitely raises the ceiling and floors for Durant and Booker, and it does make a guy like Grayson Allen a viable third option here, who's should be in line to play 30+ minutes and probably see double his shot attempts there if there's no Beal. Now, if there's Beal, I'd really just stick with the main three guys, and that's it. Don't really think there's a need to force any value. Maybe Eubanks, who's seen mid-teens minutes, but once again, the offense is just heavily dominated by these three guys. Now, if Beal's out, as I mentioned, we're going to want to look to Grayson Allen to be that backup, that third option who's flashed upside alongside Booker and Durant going for, 29, 55, 30 that one game. So if he hits his threes, he's a very strong play there. And then Nurkic is always kind of that, contrarian option. As you can see, not going to shoot the ball a ton, but does have massive upside with the doubles. He's good at passing the ball and can get some blocks and steals as well. So that is a slight breakdown, guys. Hope you guys liked the video. Right now, obviously, there's a ton of news really affecting the slate. Luka, Brunson, Luka's probably let's say Brunson, Halliburton in terms of his minutes, James Jackson Jr., Kobe White, Brad Beal. Who else we got? Brooke Lopez, he should be good to go. Mathurin, Caruso. But as I said, Golden State, one of those teams who could rest their veterans just because they've played 3 games in a row. Cleveland, same thing there. So a lot of interesting things that could be happening. Excuse me, the Warriors have played 2 games in a row, back to back, but still a lot of interesting stuff could be coming out tomorrow before this slate starts. So make sure to lock in, follow the injury news, hit that like button, and I will have my updated core plays, my core 4 on my Patreon link down below. So hope you guys liked the video. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.